Hey, Plot Army, it's Anthony Fan. Slice is taking a break this week, so I'm gonna be filling in for him for this recap. Never fear, he'll be back with you next week. But man, what a chapter for him to miss. See, it's early in the year, but I'm going to make a prediction. No other manga release in all of 2023 will be as widely misinterpreted as Black Clover Chapter 347. There's a trick to this chapter. Tabata isn't the guy you think of as playing mind games with his audience, but this time, he's gone full Kira, and most of the internet are just a pile of Matsudas eating up every word. But not you, dear viewers, because you have plot armor to guide you through the darkness. Let's get to it. We open this chapter, Truth in Deception, on the dragon from last time. And yeah, the big guy's not getting up. The Ryuzen did a number on it last time, and for now, their blows have kept it very firmly dead. With a moment to pause and collect themselves, Ichika thinks back to Asta. Ryuya had told the boy to come join them when he felt ready. The Ryuzen have reinforcements coming in theory, and it's a guy who can nullify even super powerful, indestructible magic. But Ichika isn't willing to wait. Either out of concern for Asta's safety or her personal pride, she makes it clear to her fellow Ryuzen they're not gonna play for time here. Even though they spent a ton of magic on taking down the dragon, they'll face the Paladins themselves. They're heroes of the nation, some of the greatest mages in the world. They can do this, right? Before they can even make a move, however, Sister Lily is in their midst. Her polite, calm tones sound more like mockery than ever before. She asks Ichika if the Ryuzen can avoid their next spell. Clasping her hands, Lily manifests a star next to each of the 5 Ryuzen in sequence. Before the Shogun's defenders can react, the ice-using paladin in the distance declares it's time. In an instant, the battlefield is engulfed in ice. Each star that Lily planted explodes outward in a devastating blast. Each eruption is the size of one head of the great dragon. Alone, this spell should have been enough to destroy most of the city if the Paladins had spread it around. This is a combo spell, coupling Lily's spatial magic with her comrade's powerful ice magic to create Infinity Glacier. Behold, the overwhelming strength of, Heath Grice? That's still so weird to say. It's somehow even stranger than Lily being a villain. This guy's gone from a minor bandit working the eye of the midnight sun to a nation-toppling threat. The Paladin transformation is a crazy upgrade, and it's enough to hurt the Ryuzen badly. We see most of the group in rough shape. Jozo, Komari, and Daizaimon are sprawled over the ice, covered in blood. Grice is just standing there, smugly declaring the potency of his attack, as though this outcome was simple and inevitable. This condescending jerk doesn't even smirk about it. It'd be easier to take if he was gloating. Instead, he's acting like he just swatted bugs away. It somehow makes this Grice more insufferable than his first appearance. The Ryuzen trained hard for their power, just like Asta had been. And new brand Heath thinks they're so far below him, he barely has to care. Thankfully, this one spell's not enough to completely wipe out the defenders. Ichika is still standing, though she's clearly hurt. She notes grimly that the Paladins' sheer amount of magic is ludicrous. They have the energy reserves to perform spells that are objectively just plain crazy. Massive attacks that are impossible to dodge. That's what comes from basically being a demon host. Gino is up too, and naturally, the silver fox in blood-dyed robes isn't backing down. She's more excited than ever, all too ready to slash these invaders to ribbons. She really needs to meet Jack sometime. They'd get along great. But before Gino can get her murder on, a new figure floats slowly over the battlefield. The third paladin, Yururu, the smiling man with long hair, has come to join the party. The ice paladin grins back at her new friend, calling out to ask him what's next. She sounds like a kid on a sugar rush, bouncing up and down in the back of the car. The paladin takes his time, slowly weaving another beast magic spell together. This one is far smaller than Holy Howl, at first appearing to be just a puff of smoke with two vaguely eye-like spots. It's strangely low-key for the Paladins, who seem to specialize in large-scale, all-consuming attacks. But the cloud congeals into a monstrous toad, looming above the samurai. With jewels in its eyes and a grin on its lips, this is Yururu's Boogeyman. The thing isn't that scary on the surface, but it gets an immediate and powerful scream from Kezokaku. It's like she never even drew her sword. In seconds, she's cowering in fear from the creature, back to her formerly cowardly persona, muttering "scary frog" over and over again under her breath. The thing isn't even that big, about the size of a large dog, but it's reduced her to near helplessness just from seeing it. Ichika doesn't know what to make of the bloodthirsty warrior's reaction to something so harmless looking. Gin's a fearless beast of a combatant. We've seen that just in this fight. She jumped into battle against the gigantic dragon without a second thought, cutting her way out of its mouth. But now a big frog has left her petrified? This is ridiculous. But Yururu is all too happy to explain. Boogeyman is more than just a regular magical beast. It evokes the memories and fears of its target, using them against its enemies. Its base form is this little gremlin thing, but it can become almost anything. Before the dark magic user's eyes, the Boogeyman starts talking to her, mutating into more of a human form. Even before it's finished, that drawl is enough to drain the blood from Ichika's face. In a few seconds, the Yami clan patriarch stands before her, sword raised, grinning. There's a bloodthirsty gleam in his eye. This imitation is disturbingly realistic. The smell of alcohol drifts over the air. Ichika wavers slightly at this, asking under her breath if that's truly her father. After so long, it's hard to stay objective in a situation like this. Even knowing what's going on, when faced with such a perfect illusion, she has to wonder for an instant. Thankfully, the Dark Ryuzen can reason through this. Yururu explains the spell to her after all. Boogeyman has latched onto her father's image as her fear, just as the frog was Gin's. It's only natural the spell would do this. She went through a ton of pain at her father's hands. It taking his form makes perfect sense. But ultimately, it's just a cheap trick. It's not him. Grimacing, Ichika charges towards Yururu, declaring that she's grown too strong to fall for something like this, only to pause in her tracks. As visions of the past start to flash before her eyes, Ichika is rooted to the spot as memories play out. A past she'd forgotten up to now is finally revealed to her. Or is it? See, it's here that the mind games really begin. Do you remember what Yururu said? Boogeyman evokes the fears and memories of its target. This vision isn't a coincidence. There's more to Yururu's attack than the shape-shifting monster. Think about it. Not everyone has a conventional psychological weakness to exploit. Some people don't have trauma that can be turned against them by just copying the right appearance. There's no one image that could really scare Ichika. But Boogeyman can affect your mind to set up its fear. It can get into your head, show you things, mess with you on a psychological level. That's what makes it a spell on par with the others the Paladins have been using. That's the point of this vision, and that's why it's so convincing. Even to the reader, it's convincing. Nobody seriously believed that beloved fan favorite Yami Sukehiro killed his entire family in cold blood. Tabata knew that as soon as he introduced the idea and didn't try too hard to sell it. And here comes the misdirection. The grand reveal of the truth, a whole 5 chapters later. There's more to learn here. It's fascinating to watch the spell play out, in a grim way. Yururu's pet doesn't really have to add a whole lot. Ichika suffered abuse at her father's hands. Asta brought up doubts around what her brother did, even if he didn't have evidence to back it up. So, Boogeyman takes her memory of childhood, the fear that she's been wrong about Sukehiro, and fills in the gaps to create a scenario that makes everything as bad as possible. By mixing truth together with some well-chosen paranoia, it can create a false past that's downright devastating. Ichika's vision shows us the process of a good lie step by step. Start with the abuse. Her father drinking away at his table, ranting about his clan's lost glory. This is a firm truth, something completely undisputed and that already leaves your target feeling low. Then add something plausible, that might even be a memory. In this case, it's their father trying to share a family secret pill with Sukehiro, one designed to give him great magic and bloodlust, and him rejecting it. This Oni soul pill may be real, it fits with Yami clan history, but it could just as easily be a convenient plot device inserted by the Boogeyman. It doesn't really matter. Then, only at the end do you add the slightest little push. Her father feeding Ichika the pill instead of Sukehiro. This is the giveaway that this story is a lie. As simple as this act is, it's ludicrously out of character for the patriarch given what we know of him. When we last saw Papa Yami, he tried to kill Ichika as soon as he saw her. He was that enraged at her very existence, that certain that she couldn't amount to anything. His anger at the young girl over her mother having died in childbirth was that strong. Now, put that in context of this scene. Old man Yami, this washed-up old drunkard who was so focused on the proud legacy of his clan and so dismissive of Ichika, just gave her a priceless secret of his clan's greatest warriors? A treasured family tradition that would surely only be bestowed on their finest potential heirs? Just because? The guy wouldn't waste the pill on her? No way! It's ridiculous. But it fits in the moment if you don't think back to that scene. Papa Yami's still dismissive of her, he still comes off as a bad parent. It's just reframed slightly to fit this version of events. That way, it feels like it lines up, even if it doesn't. He goes from anger, hatred, and violence towards Ichika to dismissal. Instead of an eyesore and something he wants gone, she's just empty space, a vessel to play with. It's a different type of abusive behavior, but close enough to trick you if you don't pay attention. And after a second, we move onto the big shock that diverts Ichika's attention before she gets wise to the truth. She watches her family running away from her, panicked and desperate, begging the young girl to stop. Sukehiro is there, clutching his arms. The young boy is trembling, lost in a cold sweat, barely able to say his sister's name. And then, Yami Ichika sees the people of her clan laid out before her, bloodied and dead to a one. The slaughter she'd always blamed on her brother. The field of corpses he'd left behind before vanishing to the Clover Kingdom. Was that her doing? Did she kill all these people? And it's here that the clan patriarch returns. Ichika sees her father, the man she hated so much, who tormented her for years, truly happy. For the first time, he's laughing and beaming at her, finally sincerely proud of his daughter. In his dying moments, he's been completely vindicated. She lived up to his example in the exact way she accused her brother of. She killed the Yami clan in a way that lives up to the finest Yami clan tradition of bloodthirsty violence. Ichika blamed Sukehiro, hated him for years over something that she was totally responsible for. The vision even adds on one more detail to twist the knife even deeper into the gut. Ryuya knew. Her lord, her beloved Ryuya-sama, the man whose respect she worked so hard to gain, always knew she was scum. He was just being polite to her. All their years, all that time, was just him indulging her attempts to be an honorable warrior, knowing full well she had a river of innocent blood on her hands. None of his compliments meant anything. None of his kind words were true. He was just being polite. It's a good lie, the perfect story to hurt Ichika as much as possible. But it's a lie, or at best a distortion. These memories are way too convenient. Without them, Boogeyman would have had no hold on Ichika. Her old fear of her father had turned to hatred long ago. She was more than ready for that fight at first. But thanks to this perfectly timed revelation, a warrior who'd been able to go blow for blow with Asta is left basically helpless, lost to despair in the middle of a crucial fight. Fear is multifaceted and complex, but memory manipulation can do things a simple image couldn't hope to manage. Ichika isn't afraid of her brother or father. She's afraid of ending up like him. A violent wretch who hurt the people he was supposed to care about. That's why she was so incensed by Yami's supposed slaughter of their clan. And the vision capitalized on that perfectly, showing her as the bloodthirsty monster she always believed Yami to be. With this idea preying on her heart, how could Ichika fight? It'd just be confirming what she's afraid of. How could she be anything but weak when her fear is her strength? Instead, she's shaking. Yami Ichika, proud warrior of the Ryuzen 7, is lost in her nightmare. There's a clammy sweat on her brow, and she's struggling to hold her sword. The prospect of being the one who massacred her family is simply too much for her to process. If that were true, her whole life, all her hatred and resentment, all her efforts to hold herself up, it was all meaningless. She can barely block the faux patriarch's overhead blow. Even that clumsy stroke has enough force to send Ichika spiraling painfully down to the icy-strewn dirt below. Her strength is simply gone. This isn't the same woman who was going toe-to-toe with Asta recently. Around her, the Ryuzen are starting to rally. Daizaimon is bathed in blood, struggling for breath, but the big guy is standing tall. Between gasps, he proclaims his intent to stand tall. The Ryuzen can't give in. The land of the sun is counting on them. Jozo and Komari are rising to their feet on either side, ready to join the monk in this final stand. Lily gives the battle-weary warriors a happy smile. The ever-cheerful paladin tells the Ryuzen not to worry. They don't have to continue fighting. In a little while, her gracious master, Lucius Zogratis, will grant them all peace and happiness. But it's not time for that. So now, they all have to rest in peace. Without so much as a word, the paladins revive their great holy dragon. The beast roars in joy, towering over the city, all 5 heads repaired. The Ryuzen just stare up at the kaiju in total disbelief of what just happened. They used everything they had to kill that thing, and with a moment, Lily's rendered it pointless. Who wouldn't feel despair at this? Their best efforts, their strongest attacks, and all of it did nothing. Now, they're tired, they're injured, and they're starting from scratch. Still facing Yururu and the Boogeyman, Ichika is trying to regain some self-control. She clutches her sword tight, doing all she can to force her body forward, but she can barely move. Her father towers over her, sword held high, that demonic grin on his face. Ichika's all but resigned herself to loss. She'd convinced herself that she was strong, that she'd risen above her past, but she can do nothing here. In the end, she was weak. And here, with all things at their lowest, and the blade falling towards her, the past replays itself for Yami Ichika. Just as Sukehiro once parried his father's blade, a certain young man with black wings has stepped in to fill his shoes. Ichika's eyes go wide as before her, Asta of the Black Bulls stands, locking blades with Yururu's beast puppet with a scowl. What do you think you're doing to my benefactor? Past argument or no, Asta doesn't abandon his friends. And as strong as his sword arm is, the young Black Bull's enthusiasm and optimism may be more important here. Even Asta is going to have issues dealing with all 3 paladins and the dragon. But he has backup this time. If he can convince the Ryuzen 7 that they have a chance, they may just turn the tables on these holier-than-thou Seto Kaiba wannabes. Getting Ichika back into the fights after what she just went through is going to be rough, but if anyone can pull it off, it's Asta. Thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day.